Now we come to the panel discussion session. I think because we don't have a lot of time, maybe we better allocate the priority to the audience. Do you have any questions or comments? Yes, first we have
my name's Aidan Whiteman from AEP Networks. A question maybe for Richard, given you from the US. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the industry has responded in the US to DNSSEC and you know, how they've, any good examples of how they've come on board to utilise DNSSEC in the US environment.
Excellent question. I mentioned a little bit about it in my talk. Unfortunately, industry has not really stepped into place much as we had hoped. However, many of the CIOs of the top 500 countries do know what DNSSEC is. And I'd say one of the success stories, and one of the companies I'd like to applaud is Comcast, one of our large ISPs in the U.S. They stepped out and decided to deploy DNSSEC in an early stage, realizing, just like Warren had said, that some of this, you have to start early to learn some of these things. So they started early, and in fact, they combined it with IPv6 upgrades as well. So their conclusion, there's lessons learned. Start early, combine it with other upgrade processes, then it's not so bad. But a lot of it is a people problem as well, like most things are. So they said one of their biggest problems, they also signed 5,000 of their zones. There's Comcast.com and a whole bunch of companies that have many, many domains. So they not only deployed DNSSEC and turned on validation of the resolver for all their customers, which is a big step, but they also did the sign their zones as well. And again, I recommend anyone thinking about it, look at some of their lessons learned. One of their interesting lessons learned was that a lot of times, if something goes wrong, the first phone call.
我要舉咪，可唔可以攞一陣 prepare 個 iPad 同個 Lucky Draw？可唔可以一陣拎個 iPad 同 Lucky Draw 嚟？因為有 Q&A 咧要舉。OK。我叫佢5點半前就完咯。
I said that's good and bad. Screw up now, it's not so bad. Screw up later, it's worse. So NASA.gov, someone must have forgotten to upgrade the signatures on their on NASA.gov on that domain name. So of course Comcast gets the company that's doing this gets all these calls because the validator, the DNSSEC validator for all their customers, of course, said bad zone. So they thought the company Comcast had some sort of issue and was fighting NASA, and there was all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff, and they in order to resolve this, and they resolved it in a very good way. Transparency is your friend. They published a full documentation of the steps they took to identify the problem, and without necessarily saying anything negative, just very matter of fact, saying, here's what happened, here's why NASA's site went down. We notified someone in NASA that this was the problem, and they attended to it, fixed it, re-signed their zone, and all that. But some of my point in telling the story is that there are some lessons learned that you can pick up from, and that a lot of the problems that you find are not necessarily the technical ones. They're going to be people issues.
So I actually live in South America, in the country of Chile, and it's interesting because the situation is fairly similar with .cl. Similar number of domains that exist, and I applied .hk for the process that they're going through to sign the zone, because .cl did an excellent job in signing their zone. They were methodical, they published everything, they really looked for community input. But now what they've discovered is they're trying to get anybody else to sign their zones in Chile, and it's been very hard. Particularly the banks. That's who they were hoping would get on board. And they're starting to do outreach now. They're doing workshops. They're trying to get awareness out there and get people to sign. But .hk, great idea, I think, doing this right from the start, right? Trying to get people on board and be involved right away. Because based on just that one incident, that seems like maybe a more reasonable course to take.
I
think to complement what Richard and Lily have been saying, there's a twofold problem to the adoption. The first is probably the perception that DNSSEC is complicated. There was a presentation showing that it's not that difficult to roll out, but there are implications in terms of operations, and some people either are not aware that DNSSEC exists, and so they don't feel a lot of pressure to deploy it, or they're afraid of screwing up, because when you do make a mistake, as Rick said, it's better to do it now than later, you have a more serious impact. You can't just roll back. You can't just say, oh, DNSSEC does not work, I'm getting problems, turn it off. You actually have to talk to your parent and say, please remove the record. And DNS works really well because of caching, which means that many hundreds of thousands of computers around the world have a memory of what they just looked up. So even if you turn things off, it'll take a while. So people are a little bit wary about deploying this, because they know that if they mess up, it might have a very large impact on their operations. And if you're a bank, who's notoriously conservative for many reasons, they're not going to want to just turn that on for the fun of it. So that's really the two problems I see right now in terms of industry adoption. So some people like to make comparisons with IP version 6. Somebody pointed out the other day at another talk, they said the difference is that we're running out of IPv4, so we have to go to IPv6. We're not running out of insecure DNS names. Even then, ICANN is creating PGTLD, so there's even more opportunities for people to buy more DNS. So it's not like it's a finite resource, or that we're going to have a day where insecure DNS is going to be forbidden. So the incentive problem here is, how do you tell people you really need to do this?
Listen. I want to bring this question to Ben as well, because other panelists are talking about when you go for DNS, it seems to be one way path. Otherwise, you will have to prepare a very good contingency plan. You need to take it all. All right. So I think for Hong Kong companies, they are quite concerned about the path like this. And when you are talking about Hong Kong IRC setting up a test bed in Hong Kong, is the test bed attributing these kind of problems? And if people want to join, can they test the environment safely?
Yes. Yes. From an engineer perspective, whenever you try to change something, you have to test and test and test. So that's exactly what we are trying to prepare a testbed environment, not only for us, and also for our registrar, registrant, and other ISP, so that we can test together safely in a testbed environment to make sure things are working smoothly, and you can, if you don't like it, you can easily turn it off. Yes. So we'll use not your actual production domain names. We'll separately make a song for this testbed to use. So it will not affect your production websites. It will not affect your emails. So you can safely test it with us. Yeah.
Do you mean that if you are not using a production, even if I'm not using .hk, I'm not your client, I'm using other domains, I can join your plan.
The testbed will work with .hk, but we can arrange some testing domains or testing second domain songs maybe, so that we can test together. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
I used Facebook to bring about my question. I heard Facebook was mentioned before, and somebody saying that, look, I'm not going to have my Facebook account. I don't join them. The voice in the wilderness is that, even if you not have a Facebook account holder, you are just victimized as well, you know. So the saying is that Facebook is evil and ban Facebook. But on the other hand, poor Facebook, I think they're doing a very good job. What happens to these people who are victimized is not really the fault of Facebook. How many of you are sympathetic to this statement? And what can you guys do for poor Facebook?
You're talking about Facebook. Is there any analogy? You understand?
No, I think my question is really on the security aspect of Facebook and the account holders of Facebook is facing.
Well, I think Phil's demo would actually point out that if you signed your zone, right, then if somebody's trying to redirect and trying to hijack a login on Facebook, in that case in time, it would fail. So you could add a layer of security. You're not going to solve the problem completely at that point, but you're closing down one of the vectors of attack that people use in order to spoof accounts and then take over and do whatever they're going to do to some poor person's account on Facebook. So DNSSEC would have a direct benefit to them if and when they sign their zone and actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, I'm kind of the old guy, in this audience, and that's why I wasn't. I am.
Two of us.
Yes, well, I don't know, but so I am sympathetic to Facebook, and their problems. And as Herbie was saying, that their security is done in layers. There is no one magic bullet. And DNSSEC is a critical piece I think they should implement in order to improve it.
And I'll comment that, so I have a Facebook account with lots of friends, and it makes me quite nervous, actually, right? There's a part of me that's always nervous about what if somebody gets in. So, because it's a lot of reputation is on the line right there.
Just want to add, so you might remember that about a couple of years ago when the revolution started in, I would say, Northern Africa, what we call the African Spring, there was a number of people who were, I'm not going to comment on the political side, but only the technical side, that were captured and interrogated by government agents as they were posting on Facebook and Twitter, people who were hoping to be anonymous. And what happened was that this is not Facebook's fault per se. They were not, a lot of people did not enable us to sell. Those who did found out that it was still possible for the government to spy on them. Now, there's many ways that you can work around DNSSEC. You can put a keyboard sniffer. You can install malicious software on a person's PC. You can hit people over the head with a rubber hose until they give you their password. Those are social engineering approaches. Or you could hijack the DNS. And of course, you're thinking, well, SSL is protection against that, and that's what I was trying to tell earlier, is that many governments are trusted by your browsers and are able to issue certificates. So in fact, you are in a situation where it's possible for a nation state, or not only legitimate, and of course I know it's a touchy subject in some parts of the world. I've held this talk in the Middle East where talking about censorship on the internet is not always well perceived. You have to be neutral. But the idea is that if a nation state can go in and redirect and create fake SSL certificates that are considered valid by your browser, DNSSEC is an added layer of security. And everybody's vulnerable, whether it's Facebook, whether it's your bank. I mean, if you don't have an extra separate physical token that really you're the only one to control and is not connected to your computer, because as we move forward, I think Rick told me once, we are in the 21st century. We cannot assume, we cannot go with the assumption that anything connected to the internet is secure. We have to assume that anything connected to the internet is compromisable. When I go out and talk to customers and ask them, have you ever been hacked? And they tell me no, I ask them, how do you know? Because when somebody steals something from your house, they obviously leave something behind, which is minus one thing. If you steal something from a corporate environment or a government, you can duplicate information. So being hacked is almost, I would say, a natural state of things for very large networks. We don't know if we've been hacked, and therefore, we have to think in terms of layers, right? Making it more difficult. There is no black and white security. There is no either we're secure or not. We have to assume that there's various levels of difficulties to reach certain things, we have to make it as both convenient and secure as possible without becoming impractical. So Facebook does a good balance. That was my conclusion. They check which computer you come from, they try to do SSL, they ask you to have a relatively secure password. There's certain things you can't do. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you want to make it very difficult to log into a system and type 4 passwords, you can do that, then people won't use your server.
Let us take another perspective. I heard that from some security professionals that if we are going to introduce a DNSSEC, that will be something that we are doing will become difficult. For example, we should mention that the DNS changer.net was managed, administered by the government to log all the IP addresses that connect to this DNS server. Well, but when we have DNSSEC, naturally these DNS servers are fake DNS servers, and some investigations are not disabled by better security that create problem for investigators. Is this true?
I'm trying to, in the DNS changer case, it was not governments who were attacking, right? That's not what I'm saying. It was a couple of criminals in Estonia which were attacking. And in fact, one of the great things about DNS changer was an example of international cooperation. I don't want to get into it. We could talk later, but just by having law enforcement officials from one country and other countries actually spend time together, that's a very, the bottom line is, in these situations when you actually try to find out who's causing the problem and going after the criminals, you need cooperation at the people level. One FBI agent that I know really well in the U.S., he said, at 10 p.m. on a Saturday on the weekend, I'm not taking a phone call from someone I don't know. It's got to be a friend of mine. And in this case, it was an excellent example of that. So, but it was an example of that kind of cooperation that was able to bring down that botnet, get those Estonian guys out, and then take those IP addresses, the people's redirected machines, and actually have them start working with reasonable resolvers. But if I understand your question, reading into it properly, there are some concerns from law enforcement about things like DNSSEC.
For example,
Makes it harder for them.
Yeah, you're right that those the DNS changer botnet, when it was taken over by the police, the bot circle still connecting to the DNS servers. What was done was ISC as an institution put up some DNS server to continue to provide DNS resolution service to those infected machines. Yeah, that was very good because these we call simple servers record the IP address of those connecting between machines and then inform the ISPs that these are infected machines, and we can inform the customers to clean them up themselves. Now, what I mean is some people challenge this will not be possible in the future because if you have DNSSEC, because these DNS servers are not the relevant DNS servers, they are not really the domain resolution servers. They are just put out by other institutions to serve the purpose. So in fact, the browser will not, with this DNS terminal, will not even allow the victim to visit this simple service. That defeat the purpose of getting this information.
Well, I can comment on that. I think that's actually not the case because those name servers, there's two types of name servers. What's called resolvers and authoritative. The resolvers are the one the ISPs run to provide service for your PCs, your laptop, your smartphone. And the whole strength about DNSSEC is that the data is signed. It doesn't really matter where the data comes from. So any name server can be used by your PC, and this is how DNS changer works. The name servers are not authenticated in any way. Your PC does not have a special relationship with the DNS server. It's like saying, I don't trust the messenger. I only trust what's in the envelope. And that's the entire idea with DNSSEC, so that in this particular case, it wouldn't matter which DNS servers you use. And again, why DNS changer work is that even if you validate it, it would it would lie, the DNSSEC would detect that unless you did other manipulations to the PC. So the idea here is that you can use any name server, and your PC will go out and look at the key it has to validate the answer. It does not care where it got the answer from. So there is no pre-validated or pre-qualified or green-lighted list of name servers out there that you can use. Any one of them will work. So in fact, I don't actually think that's an issue. I think it would actually just work. And in the future, on the other hand, DNSSEC would have probably allowed more users to detect this problem faster and be notified that their machine was being tampered with. Now, obviously, if somebody has a super privilege on your PC, you have other issues to worry about. But at least the DNSSEC part of it did a nice job.
Are there any questions from the floor? Richard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just would like to make just one comment. First of all, listening to Ben's presentation, I was you guys are way ahead of the curve. If you have ISO 27000, one of the most type of certification, one of the most difficult things with something like DNSSEC, we're starting to talk about security in general, is that a lot of us internet people need to shift gears and think differently. And it's very hard for some of us. And so I think I applaud .educate going for that kind of certification, because that makes this whole process much more easier. And more in listening to I mean, boy, it sounded like we were brothers. I mean, this is the same kind of engineering. That was a bigger presentation with all the very concise description of all these examples was really impressive. So, you know, I see great things there. I'm really cool about that. And then finally, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of one. Finally, just to shift gears, you know, the whole cybersecurity issue now is something that is governments, even at the highest level, even at UN levels and things like the World Economic Forum, and you know, these big kind of top-level kind of meetings, it's hit the highest levels. And for us in this room, that's kind of a good thing because the attention now is there. You know, it used to be that we have a great idea and say, come on, listen to us, listen to us, listen to us, right? Well, they are kind of in that place. So we're lucky to be, you know, in whatever shape or form in the security industry right now, and I think it's a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Warren, you in the talk you mentioned that when we implement DNSSEC, we need to do something on the firewall in order that allows the logic traffic to go through. Yeah, you imply that when we implement DNSSEC, in fact the query and response will be a bit different than before. The increment of this packet size, will there be any impact on the performance of the DNS server, or will it be used by some security hacker to amplification attack in the future?
Yes, you are quite right to point out that after DNSSEC, the UDP payload will be much larger. The maximum size of a UDP can be 4,000 bytes, and compared with the normal UDP, it is 512 bytes. The amplification factor has been increased by 8 times. So a hacker can use the DNSSEC payload to DDoS other name server, but we, as the level administrator, can do something to prevent that. We must first close open resolver, because hacker will use all kinds of open resolver as their weapon to fuck other, to send out large number of packets to other name servers. So I think the issues of open resolver is very serious, and ICANN seems to be doing a lot of promotion to ask ISP and organization to close an open resolver. Can ICANN give us some idea about that?
I mean, unfortunately, I think you've said everything. I know we do spend a lot of effort to try to encourage various TLD operators to close down any open resolver. So when we see them, we contact them and gently suggest to them what they may do. But yeah, it's been the internet community as a whole has done pretty well. in doing this. So it's not so much ICANN. ICANN can't take too much credit here. I think it's the internet community as a whole that has actually gone out and said, yes, this is a problem. They've gone after and tried to educate some of these people.
Yeah, as we say, when we talk to system administrators, when we go out for grants, we say, friends don't let friends run open resolvers. It's like, are you running resolvers first? We warn people, and usually that's how it works. You know, peer networks, the network behind the internet, where we tell people, inform them, and so you shouldn't be running an open resolver because you're actually, it's the same thing if you're an ISP and you're not doing any kind of filtering on your IP addresses and you're letting your users spoof IP addresses. The same way that if you're an ISP that doesn't care about these things, you're polluting the internet, right? So we tell people, well, you actually, first of all, destroy your bandwidth, you'll realize really quickly, but you also did service to the community. So we try to put a little bit of moral pressure on people, saying by offering it, or by letting people use an open resolver because you don't care, you're offering worse service to your customers, and you're actually damaging the internet. So that usually works a little bit better, making you feel bad about it.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think time is running short. Thanks for the last comment because DNS is a critical infrastructure for us, and we have to value the use of it and avoid abuse. Everyone has a responsibility to take good of responsibility of their own infrastructure, either ISP or the enterprise. I think it summed up to today's panel discussion, and I want to remind you that we have an evaluation form. Help us to fill in your input so that we can improve. As I said in the opening, that basic DNSSEC activity is not the last one. We will continue to provide more opportunity for awareness, education, and more hands-on workshops, so as to build up the Hong Kong's readiness to implementation of DNSSEC. And I hope that in the future, Hong Kong IRC will also provide more and more information to us so that people in Hong Kong can join the prospect. Okay. Let's give a big thanks to Thanks a lot for coming, and we will inform you once the presentation.
Can I make the last comment? Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with ICANN people, the top policy maker about DNS Wuzong. So for those level administrators who work very hard to enable DNSSEC, would ICANN recommend to their accredited registrar that these people really work very hard to make the internet secure? They should be offer a discount of 20 or 30% in their annual service charge as a token of their efforts.
We can talk offline more.
And we do have a workshop tomorrow.
Yes, for anyone taking the workshop tomorrow.
There is a technical workshop tomorrow for those of you who hadn't noticed. That's going to go into depth, so you're going to hear me talk even more and spend even more time on the command line showing things on the screen, but you'll also have to do something if you join.
Do people need to bring their own computer?
Yes, they do. They need to bring their own laptops, and it is a very much hands-on workshop. So if you have no knowledge of the command line and absolutely zero knowledge of, say, Unix-like systems, you may survive, but it will be a little bit more on a spelling level.
Okay. It's a wonderful workshop. I mean, I really stress anyone who's interested in this stuff.
Yes. We'll start with an technical intro to DNSSEC. So if you're curious about that, even the first hour might be entertaining.
Yeah, and if you get tired of him, then you just leave.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks again.